The Galactic Defense Academy sounded impressive on the brochures, prestigious, interstellar, unifying the elite from over 9,000 civilizations. In practice, it was more like a very well-funded galactic high school, if said school had classes where your lab partner might secrete acid or breathe methane through their forehead. And for Lieutenant Junior Grade Elaine Mercer, it was Tuesday. She stood alone at the back of Integration Combat Theory 101, her Academy-issue jumpsuit clinging awkwardly to her very human limbs in the refrigerated environment the Academy affectionately called the meat locker. The thermostat was calibrated for the Dresnaxian students, crustacean war giants with ice-brick blood and a strict belief in physical correction over verbal instruction. The rest of the class was a menagerie of gas-breathing cephalopods, multi-limbed gill fins, and a particularly damp pile of moss named Flern. Elaine had spent the first 3 weeks wondering if Flern was a student or just aggressively tenacious algae. She blew warm breath into her cupped hands. "Can we get this over with before my soul flash freezes?" No one responded. The AI assistant orb above the instructor platform blinked politely. "Please refrain from sarcasm, Cadet Mercer. Instructor Vorgath is initiating class protocol." Of course he was. Instructor Vorgath, son of the iron shell of Dresnax Prime, stomped into the training arena with all the grace of a collapsing building. 6 chitinous legs, reinforced dorsal plating, and a face like a tactical snowplow with teeth. He was over 7 feet tall, and by Earth standards, probably needed to file permits just to walk through a hallway. "Cadets," he boomed, voice vibrating through 3 rib cages. "Today we cover species-specific correction protocol." Elaine raised an eyebrow. "That sounds wildly HR incompatible." Vorgath didn't look at her. He never did. "Many of you have primitive instincts," he continued. "Hesitation, emotional attachments, fear of confrontation. These must be eliminated in field scenarios, so today we practice tactical discipline enforcement." She blinked. "He means slapping us." The AI orb chimed. "Confirmed." Vorgath selected a trembling, tentacle-possessing Gulthok first. The slap was more of a tap with a primary limb, but the Gulthok flopped across the mat like a discarded beach towel. The rest of the class buzzed with nervous energy and dripping slime. Vorgath nodded with grim approval. "Corrective force, minimal. Reaction, optimal. Reinforcement, achieved." Then he turned, and for the first time since the semester began, his compound eyes locked on Elaine. "You," he said. Her breath fogged in the freezing air. "Me? You have not been tested." Elaine looked around. "You realize I'm a 5'5" human with exactly 0 exoskeletons, right? Then you shall learn." 10 minutes later, Elaine stood in the center of the training floor, arms crossed, staring up at Vorgath like someone preparing to be hit by a refrigerator. The class ringed the mat, watching. The orb AI recorded silently. Flern burbled. Elaine rolled her shoulder. "Just to confirm, you're going to hit me, in front of witnesses, as part of class." "Yes," Vorgath growled. She smirked. "Just wanted to make sure your insurance premiums were up to date." He didn't laugh. Of course not. He raised one massive primary limb, all armored muscle and brute force. "Correction strike, deployed." Then came the slap. Elaine had time to register 2 things. His arm moved fast, for a creature the size of a small car. She was already airborne. She hit the mat with a bone-rattling thump, stars bursting in her vision. The room buzzed, someone chittered, someone else clapped with tentacles. The AI orb muttered, "Biomechanical stabilization, exceeded. Human skeletal integrity, uncertain." Elaine groaned, rolled over, sat up slowly, and smiled. "Okay," she wheezed. "That's how we're doing this." The class expected her to stay down. That was what humans did, right? Soft, squishy, breakable. Instead, Elaine stood up, shook out her limbs. Her left shoulder screamed in protest, but she didn't let it show. "Permission to return the favor, sir," she said evenly. Vorgath stared. "You wish to engage?" "Oh, not wish. I insist." He clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "For educational purposes. Accepted." The class gasped. Dozens of throats, vents, and gills all making horrified sounds. The AI orb blinked. "Probability of success, 1.4%. Initiating medical alert standby." Elaine grinned. "Perfect odds." She stepped onto the mat again. The floor felt firmer now, her footing lighter. Something clicked into place. She wasn't scared. She was pissed, and that made her dangerous. Vorgath raised all 6 limbs, defensive stance. He was giving her the benefit of spectacle, expecting her to swing wildly and tire herself out. Instead, she dashed in low. Humans weren't strong, but they were fast. She slid under his legs, grabbed a climbing strap from his combat harness, yanked herself onto his back before he could pivot. "Unorthodox," he barked, whirling. Elaine wrapped the strap around his primary ocular stalk and yanked. He roared. She yanked again, rolled over his armored shoulder, kicked his balance limb, twice, then reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, red-marked aerosol. Standard Earth issue. Pepper spray. She sprayed it directly into his secondary respiration slit. Vorgath screamed. The alien collapsed like a skyscraper losing Wi-Fi. 6 limbs flailing, mandibles twitching. The AI orb blinked in stunned silence. Elaine stood over him, panting, lips split and shoulder bruised. "Instructional enough for you, sir?" she said. Silence. Then the orb whispered, "Unprecedented tactical subjugation. Evaluation. Brutal. Also hilarious." The class erupted, not in horror, but in stunned respect. Tentacles clapped. Gas sacs hissed in approval. Even Flern oozed forward with what could only be described as admiration. Elaine Mercer, fragile, breakable, underestimated human, nodded once. "I'll be in the mess hall," she said. "Someone bring the instructor an ice pack, and maybe a sense of humor." Elaine Mercer had walked into Integration Combat Theory 101 as the token human. She left it as a rumor. By the time she reached the mess hall, shoulder sore, lip split, adrenaline still simmering, the whispers had already started. A soft-eyed Trivian cadet dropped his nutrient cube when she passed. 2 Jundari twins buzzed so loudly in their ultrasonic language the translation system crackled. Even the kitchen drones paused, as if unsure whether to offer her food or an apology. She sat alone with her tray of grey synth protein and untouched rations, wondering when the full-body soreness would kick in. Answer: now. Her ribs throbbed in Morse code. Her spine felt like it had been realigned by a blind chiropractor with anger issues. But none of that mattered. She'd floored Vorgath. She, a 5 feet 5 inches human with brittle bones and sarcasm, had taken on a war-hardened Dresnaxian and made him taste pavement. Halfway through her meal, someone approached. No footsteps, just a shift in air pressure, a shadow. Elaine looked up to find a 3-eyed, translucent alien standing beside her. Tall, too many elbows, face unreadable. "You used chemical warfare on an instructor," it said. Elaine chewed slowly. "That's one way to describe pepper spray." There was a long pause. Then the creature sat. "I'm Ulent, from Tarsic 5. Elaine raised an eyebrow. "Cool. I have a question." "Shoot. Are all humans like you?" She swallowed, wiped her mouth. "That depends. Are you asking if all humans are reckless, petty, and too stubborn to quit when slapped by a walking crab tank?" "Yes." She leaned back and grinned. "Then yeah, pretty much." By the next morning, her name had gone system-wide. Mercer, the slapback queen, Earth's payback primate, the pink-skinned smackbringer. Her face, bruised and defiant, was now the #1 trending search across 6 moons. The footage had leaked, naturally. The Academy AI assistant had helpfully tagged it. Species 329 F counters, Instructor Vorgath. Resolution: spicy. Cadets she'd never met nodded to her in corridors. A grizzled Avati weapons expert offered her a thermal patch without a word. The Gulthok she'd once watched get rolled like a yoga mat now stood taller when she passed. And then came the message. To Lieutenant J.G. Mercer, Human Contingent. From Commander Vorgath of Dresnax. Subject: next class session. You will lead the hand-to-hand demonstration. Bring whatever primitive tricks you consider effective. The class wishes to learn them, so do I. Elaine stared at the message for a long time, blinking, then burst out laughing. "You want me to teach aliens how to be petty?" she muttered. "Oh, we're all going to die." She spent the next 3 nights building her own curriculum. Step 1. Human Combat Essentials. Lesson 1. If you can't beat them in strength, beat them in weird. Her training session was standing room only. She walked into the room, bruised, stiff, wearing a patched-up academy jumpsuit and a belt full of contraband earth nonsense. In her right hand, a roll of duct tape. In her left, a squeaky rubber duck. The alien cadets looked confused. Perfect. Okay, she began, addressing 30 species at once. Let's talk about unfair fighting, because let me be honest, humans don't fight fair. We fight angry. She tossed a zip tie on the ground. You see this? It's not a restraint device. It's an emergency ankle immobilizer. Also works on necks if you're flexible. She pointed at a tray of glitter. This? Blinding powder. She held up the rubber duck. Distraction. Also a decoy grenade. Long story. She turned and wrote 3 words on the smart wall. Dirty, cheap, fast. Those are your new friends. She ran them through drills. How to find weak joints in multi-limbed creatures, where most alien exoskeletons had sensory nodes. How to weaponize panic. How do you win when someone has 6 arms, can crush steel, and has redundant hearts? She asked. Silence. You make them afraid of you. The drills were chaotic, loud, full of swearing and bruised egos, but something incredible happened. The alien cadets started smiling, not because they understood the techniques, but because for the first time they weren't thinking about size, strength, species, or pride. They were just learning to be clever, human clever. Later that night, she got another message. From Commander Vorgath. Subject: Impressions. Your methods are disturbing, effective, but disturbing. Elaine snorted. Then the message continued. I require private training. My joints still ache. Bring the duck. She nearly choked on her tea. By the end of the week, Elaine was unofficially the Academy's most requested combat tutor. By the end of the month, she had her own nickname on campus, Instructor Chaos. Alien cadets carried duct tape and marbles into simulation drills, and the crustacean who once slapped her across the mat now asked her, respectfully, for feedback. But what she didn't know was that a new evaluation had begun, not by her instructors, by the Galactic Command Review Board, and someone high up had just marked her name with a red tag, because apparently human unpredictability wasn't just tolerated now, it was becoming doctrine. Elaine Mercer was eating lunch upside down when the emergency alert hit. Not metaphorically, literally upside down, floating in a zero-G training pod she'd modified with bungee cords, eating a tube of compressed lasagna and thinking about launching a surprise glitter trap in next week's drill. Then the AI's voice cut through the hum of the module. Attention, live combat scenario authorized. Designation, Onyx Protocol. All integration cadets, report to Simbay Delta in full gear. Elaine blinked. Onyx? That's the real one, isn't it? Correct. Oh no. Simbay Delta wasn't a simulation room. It was a live-fire, full-contact, zero-lag combat dome, the kind they only used when the scenario wasn't theoretical. Inside, cadets buzzed with confusion. Even Vorgath looked unnerved. Elaine strapped on her gear and counted heads. Her team, Team Theta, was a beautiful disaster. Ulent, the too-many-elbows telepath who was afraid of loud noises. Flern, the sentient mossball who refused to wear shoes. Jinnix, a winged bird-like cadet with perfect aim and zero attention span. And Nask, a grumpy lizard creature who hissed at anything that wasn't food. Not exactly the A-team. And Elaine? She was their lead. Because apparently, when you become a campus legend, you also become a convenient scapegoat for experimental assignments. The AI announcement continued. Scenario: hostile extraction under sabotage conditions. Opposing force: cadets from Class Sigma and combat drones. Success condition: extract objective from hostile zone. Failure condition: complete disqualification. Elaine raised her hand. Quick question. Why are we being pitted against 2 other classes? Your tactics have proven unconventional. This is a stress test. She looked at her team, looked at the opposing force, then muttered, "Oh, they're about to be very stressed." As the countdown hit 0, Team Theta dropped into the training zone, an artificial ruined city, complete with faux rubble, disabled vehicles, and shifting weather. Jinnix opened with a shriek of, "For the Duck Queen," and dive-bombed the first drone. Elaine didn't correct him. She'd brought a bag full of what the AI labeled non-standard equipment. Inside, marbles, rubber balls, zip ties, aerosol chalk, pepper spray, again, noisemakers, and exactly one stuffed raccoon named Sergeant Bitey. While Class Sigma advanced in perfect formation, wearing matching armor and holding synchronized weapons, Elaine had her team split up and disappear. They weren't here to win clean. They were here to ruin someone's expectations. 2 drones down. Then a Sigma cadet slipped, on ball bearings scattered by Ulant, who teleported out just before impact. Flern launched from a drainpipe like a mossy cannonball and tackled an enemy from above, releasing spores that clogged every sensor. "Is that legal?" someone shouted. Elaine, hiding in a mock sewer grate, whispered into her mic, "Only if it's funny." At midpoint, the scoreboard glitched, because the system wasn't designed to track unconventional combat. "Did they just weaponize trash?" one monitor asked. "No," said Vorgath from the observation platform, voice unreadable. "They weaponized creativity." Elaine led the extraction herself, dodging drone fire, sprinting through shattered buildings, carrying the mission package, a sealed data core the size of a lunchbox. Behind her, Jinnix flew cover. Flern clogged a hallway, and Ulant dropped an anti-grav plate that launched 2 opponents into a wall. Sigma and the drones closed in from 3 sides. Elaine dove behind a burnt-out hovercar, heart pounding. Time to use the secret weapon. She pulled out Sergeant Bitey, set the internal timer, tossed it into the open. The enemy paused. "What is that?" The raccoon exploded into a burst of white powder, flashbang light, and a recorded message of Elaine yelling, "This is for New Haven, you cowards." Every sensor tripped. Every enemy unit lost tracking for 3.4 seconds. It was enough. Elaine's team sprinted through the last checkpoint and slammed the data core into the relay point. Mission complete. The simulation ended. The lights rose. Team Theta stood in the debris, panting, covered in chalk and alien moss, surrounded by stunned silence. The scoreboard blinked. Victory, Team Theta. Time, 6:43. Efficiency rating, illogical. Creativity, score, maximum. The AI assistant stuttered, "That should not have worked." Vorgath walked into the arena, stared down at Elaine, then nodded slowly. "You are chaos." Elaine saluted. "Thank you, sir. I try." Later that night, a message pinged in her datapad. To Lieutenant J.G. Elaine Mercer. From Galactic Integration Command, Special Ops Division. "We are monitoring your progress with interest. Your methods violate all accepted doctrines. We'd like to know more." And beneath it, a single line. "Also, where can we acquire more Sergeant Biteys?" Elaine Mercer was not ready to be summoned by the Galactic Integration Command, which was fine, because she wasn't summoned, she was recruited. It started with a knock on her barracks door at 4 a.m. Standard Time, which would be a cardinal sin on Earth, but in galactic military culture meant they really, really wanted your attention. She opened the door in a wrinkled academy hoodie and one sock. A bipedal insectoid in polished black armor stood at attention. Its mandibles clicked precisely. "You are requested for a private consultation. Immediate transport provided. Clearance, burn tier." Elaine squinted. "You realize I just pepper-sprayed your training staff, right?" The insectoid didn't blink. Probably didn't have eyelids. "Yes." She grabbed her bag, Sergeant Bitey 2.0, and a protein bar. "I'm in." The transport ship was sleek, silent, and way too clean. No broken screens, no duct-taped ceiling panels, no humming power cores that smelled suspiciously like regret. Inside, 2 more officers reviewed footage of her last simulation. Her takedown of Class Sigma played in loops from multiple angles. One of them, a stone-skinned creature with glowing runes carved across his arms, looked up and nodded. "Effective. Disgracefully so." "Appreciate that," Elaine muttered between bites. The briefing room was less a room and more of a glass hemisphere hanging over the dark side of a gas giant. It was the kind of room designed to make someone feel small. It failed spectacularly. Elaine took the seat like she owned it. A hologram flickered to life. An admiral, human, mid-50s, hardened face, voice like gravel marinated in whiskey. "Lieutenant Mercer," he said, "your performance has drawn attention." Elaine raised an eyebrow. "That's what happens when you blow up a stuffed raccoon for tactical purposes. You broke 3 simulation parameters, rewrote 5 AI combat protocols, and forced the Academy to patch its drone behavior coding. "I aim to please." The Admiral didn't smile, but he did say, "We want you to teach." Elaine blinked. "I'm sorry, what?" She was introduced to a new program, the Cross-Species Tactical Unorthodox Response Division, or as the recruits were already calling it, Sea-Stirred. Elaine hated the name, but loved the job. Her new class wasn't exactly standard. There was a 12-foot armored worm that communicated only in scent trails, a psychic fungus colony with 7 bodies and 1 shared grudge, a pair of competitive cephalopods who kept trying to sabotage each other's oxygen tanks, and 1 actual rock. Just a rock. No one knew who authorized it. She named it Dwayne. Elaine opened their first session by throwing a marble into the center of the room. It exploded into a cloud of glitter. The psychic fungus recoiled in horror. "Lesson 1, she said. "Expect everything." Her syllabus included improvised distraction tactics using snacks, pressure point mapping for non-humanoid anatomy, the weaponization of awkward conversation, and an entire week labeled Human Pettiness, a tactical review. She introduced them to dodgeball. No one was emotionally ready. By the end of week 3, her team had sabotaged a mock enemy base using chewing gum and soup cans, disabled drones with rope traps and sarcastic voice commands, and forced a simulated battalion to retreat using only leaf blowers and strategically deployed sadness. Vorgarth visited once, halfway through a demonstration. He stood silently as her class reenacted the Battle of Shell's End using pillows and a fog machine. When it was over, he grunted, "Primitive, but brilliant." Elaine beamed. "That's what they call me." But then came the unexpected message. Live exercise, Sea-Stirred v. Real-World Pirates. Objective, neutralize threat, minimize casualties. Environment, derelict cargo station, drifting near border sector. Time, immediate. Elaine looked at her team, then at the rock. Even Dwayne looked ready. They dropped in with 0 fanfare, no banners, no orchestras, no backup, just 1 human with a hoodie and a reputation, and 6 of the galaxy's weirdest misfits. The pirates were heavily armed, confident, and utterly unprepared. Elaine's team split into chaos vectors. The cephalopods faked an argument, then knocked out 3 sentries with synchronized appendage slaps. The worm disabled the lighting with a well-timed flex. Elaine herself appeared behind the pirate leader mid-monologue and sprayed his face with a squirt bottle labeled, "Do not use on sentient beings." The pirates were disarmed in 8 minutes. One of them reportedly surrendered after tripping on a banana peel placed strategically outside the airlock. Galactic Command debriefed her with wide eyes. "You used comedic timing?" Elaine sipped her juice pouch. "You ever see a pirate panic because a sentient mushroom threatens to tell his mum?" Silence. Then someone finally said, "We need more of this." Elaine Mercer stood at the front of the Galactic Warfare Symposium, sipping recycled conference coffee and trying not to laugh. On the wall behind her, a massive screen displayed freeze frames from her team's recent pirate takedown, a terrified smuggler being tackled by a glowing fungus, a cephalopod cadet wielding a leaf blower like a flamethrower, Sergeant Bitey 3.0 duct-taped to a pirate's back with a timer strapped to its belly. The caption read, "Tactical Creativity in Multi-Species Engagements, the Mercer Doctrine," which was hilarious, because she didn't have a doctrine. She had spite, duct tape, and a lifetime of growing up in a species where you could lose a bar fight and win the lawsuit. But that didn't stop the galaxy from turning her into a sensation. Cadets across the known systems now trained with Mercer sim packs, mini-scenarios featuring non-traditional tactics like distracting enemies with Earth pop songs, turning cafeteria trays into armor, weaponizing sarcasm as a demoralization tool. Elite academies began offering elective courses titled Mercerian Maneuvers. Vorgarth, now promoted and horrifyingly serving as an ambassador to Earth, still sent her monthly updates like attempted pepper spray diplomacy, mixed results, miss your chaos, enclosed, crab jerky. She became a guest instructor on Halcyon Station, training alien operatives who couldn't understand why Earth didn't conquer more planets. "Because we're busy," she explained. "Y'all haven't invented retail therapy yet. We're emotionally complex." One student, an armored rock being named Torque, raised a plated hand. "Instructor Mercer, how do you recommend destabilizing a command structure?" She smiled. Easy. Start a group chat without the leader in it. Everywhere she went, things changed. Drones started coming pre-glitter-proofed. Security protocols included Mercer variant sabotage alerts, and at least one galaxy-spanning corporation added her to their banned customer list. We regret to inform you, your tactics violate our return policy. But the moment she truly realized how far she'd come was in a darkened simulator room, watching a new group of cadets run their final. They weren't powerful, they weren't coordinated, but they won, with decoys, with improvised weapons, with pure nerve and chaotic trust. One used a rubber duck to redirect laser fire, another screamed, "I have emotions," as a distraction, and a third booby-trapped the exit with cafeteria pudding. Elaine watched it all with pride. As the cadets gathered afterward, she clapped slowly. "All right," she said. "Which one of you taped a raccoon to a drone and made it the objective?" A Gorlaxian student raised 3 of his 6 hands. "We named him Commander Bitey," Elaine grinned. "You pass." She was offered promotion. She declined. She was offered command. She laughed. Instead, she took a role no one expected. Cultural combat liaison, traveling across the stars, teaching military leaders how to fight smarter, not stronger, how to think human, how to be petty and persistent in the same breath. Years later, she returned to the academy where it all began. The training arena was upgraded now. Vorgath's name was engraved on one wall. Mercer's was painted, spray-painted, on the other. No one knew who did it. She stood quietly in the center of the mat, where she'd once been slapped by an alien the size of a refrigerator. Students watched her, waiting, expecting another trick, another surprise. Elaine smiled, reached into her bag, pulled out a small, dusty, stuffed raccoon. Sergeant Bitey, original, scarred, stitched back together too many times to count, and set him gently on the floor, then said, "Class, today's lesson, never hit a human unless you're ready for everything else that follows."